I never thought my sister's wedding rehearsal would end with half the guests walking out. But when my 8-year-old son Braden stood at that microphone with trembling hands, reading names from a crumpled card, I realized some battles are worth fighting, even if it means losing family. My name is Melody Cooper. I'm 34, divorced, and the single mom to the most incredible little boy you'd ever meet. Braden isn't just my son. He's my whole world wrapped up in dinosaur t-shirts and untied sneakers. He has this way of seeing right through people, like he can spot kindness or cruelty from across a room. That night at the Whitmore Country Club, he saw both. My younger sister, Rosalie, Rose to everyone who loves her, was getting married to Garrett Whitmore. If you'd asked me 6 months earlier if this match would work, I'd have laughed. Rose teaches 2nd grade and volunteers at the animal shelter on weekends. Garrett comes from the kind of money where people have wings of hospitals named after them, but somehow they fit. He looked at her like she hung the moon, and she grounded him in ways his trust fund never could. The rehearsal was supposed to be simple. Practice the ceremony, eat overpriced food, pretend the Whitmore family's wealth didn't make us all feel like we were wearing costumes instead of our best clothes. My parents, Frank and Dottie Cooper, sat at their assigned table looking exactly how you'd expect a contractor and a school nurse to look in a room full of investment bankers. Dad kept pulling at his collar like it was trying to strangle him. "This napkin costs more than my lunch usually does," Dad muttered to Mom, who shushed him but smiled. That was their dynamic. Dad said what everyone was thinking. Mom kept us all from complete social disaster. Braden had been practicing his ring-bearer duties for weeks. He'd walk from our kitchen to the living room with a pillow, counting his steps, making sure his pace was perfect. "Aunt Rose says I'm the most important job," he'd tell anyone who'd listen. "Without me, they can't get married." The country club's crystal ballroom gleamed like something from a magazine. Chandeliers dripped from the ceiling, each one probably worth more than my car. The Whitmore family had already arrived in force. Brothers, cousins, business associates who seemed to be family by default. They moved through the space like they owned it, which, knowing Vivian Whitmore, they probably did in some way. Vivian was Garrett's mother, and from the moment I met her, I understood why Garrett often looked tired when he mentioned her. She was 55, immaculate in the way only serious money can achieve, with silver hair that looked like it had been styled by angels, and a smile that never quite reached her eyes. She ran a real estate empire that specialized in luxury developments, the kind that displaced entire neighborhoods but included yoga studios and organic markets to ease wealthy consciences. "Melody, darling," Vivian had greeted me earlier, air-kissing beside my cheek like we were old friends instead of barely acquaintances. "And this must be your little boy." The way she said "your little boy" should have been my first warning. There was a weight to it, a separation, like she was drawing invisible lines between who belonged and who was merely tolerated. Braden had been nervous around all the formal settings and stern-looking people in expensive suits. He kept close to me, his small hand occasionally reaching for mine when someone new approached. Rose noticed and made a point of introducing him to everyone as my nephew Braden, my ring bearer and favorite little man. Each time she said it, he stood a little taller. Garrett was different from his family in ways that mattered. While they talked about stock portfolios and vacation properties in the Hamptons, he'd crouch down to Braden's level and ask about school, about his favorite dinosaurs, about the book he was reading. He didn't talk to my son like he was a child to be tolerated, but like he was a person worth knowing. "You ready for tomorrow, buddy?" Garrett had asked Braden during the cocktail hour before the rehearsal. "I practiced 47 times, Braden announced proudly. "I won't mess up." "I know you won't. You're going to be perfect." Looking back now, I realize Garrett's jaw had been tight when he said it, his eyes flicking toward his mother who was holding court near the bar, surrounded by women who looked like they'd never eaten a carb in their lives. He knew what was coming. We just didn't know he'd already prepared for war. The rehearsal dinner at Vivian's Country Club should have been perfect. Rose had dreamed of this day since we were kids, playing dress-up in Mom's closet, draping her old curtains over our heads as makeshift veils, and picking dandelions for bouquets. Now here she was, 20 years later, in an actual rehearsal dinner dress that cost more than my monthly rent, and somehow she still looked like that little girl who used to make me promise I'd be her maid of honor. "Melody," "Can you fix this?" Rose turned to me, pointing at a loose curl that had escaped her updo. Her hands were shaking slightly, and I knew it wasn't from excitement alone. "You're nervous," I said, securing the curl with a bobby pin from my purse. "Vivian rearranged the seating chart 3 times today," she admitted quietly. She said the original plan didn't properly reflect family hierarchy. Family hierarchy. Those 2 words made my stomach turn. In the Cooper family, hierarchy meant Dad got the big piece of chicken at dinner because he worked construction all day, and Mom got to pick the TV show on Sunday nights because she dealt with sick kids all week. It didn't mean whatever Vivian was orchestrating. Braden ran up to us, his little navy suit already slightly wrinkled from climbing on the country club's garden walls outside. "Aunt Rose, should I walk fast or slow? Garrett said to go slow, but what if I get nervous and speed up?" Rose knelt down, her expensive dress pooling on the floor. "Just be yourself, sweetie. Walk however feels right. The important thing is you're there with me." I caught the tension in her voice, the way her smile didn't quite crinkle her eyes the way it usually did. She was trying to protect him from something. I just didn't know what yet. The crystal ballroom filled steadily with Garrett's family and friends. They moved differently than we did, with a confidence that came from never having to check price tags or worry about overdraft fees. The men wore watches that cost more than college tuition, and the women carried purses I'd only seen in magazines at the dentist's office. My parents had found their assigned seats at table 7, not table 1 with immediate family, I noticed, not even table 2 or 3, 7. Dad's calloused contractor hands fidgeted with his tie, the one he'd worn to every formal event for the past decade. Mom had bought a new dress from JCPenney, purple because Rose said the wedding colors were lavender and silver, and she looked beautiful even if she was clearly uncomfortable. "This place costs more per night than I made in my first year in business," Dad whispered to Mom, looking at the gold-embossed menu cards. "Frank, hush," Mom said, but she was calculating too. I could see it in her eyes, the nurse in her adding up costs and wondering how many medical supplies this could buy for her elementary school. Garrett's brothers had arrived in a cluster, all tall and broad-shouldered like him, but lacking his warmth. Nathan, the eldest, worked at the family firm. The twins, Christopher and James, ran their own investment company. They acknowledged us with polite nods but gravitated toward their own kind, discussing quarterly earnings and market projections. "Mommy, why is everyone so fancy?" Braden whispered, pressing against my side. "It's just different from what we're used to, baby. Different doesn't mean better." But even as I said it, I watched how the waitstaff treated the Whitmores versus how they treated us, the subtle difference in deference, the assumption of importance. We were clearly the bride's side, the add-ons to this grand affair. Garrett found us near the rehearsal stage, and immediately the atmosphere changed. He picked Braden up and spun him around, making my son giggle. "There's my ring bearer. You ready to show everyone how it's done?" "I practiced with Mom's couch cushions as pretend rings," Braden said seriously. "I didn't drop them once today." "That's my man," Garrett high-fived him, then looked at me. "Melody, thank you for everything. I know this whole scene isn't really your family's style." "Rose is happy. That's all that matters," I said, though something in his expression suggested it might not be that simple. Vivian orchestrated everything like a conductor with an orchestra. She directed the wedding coordinator with sharp gestures, pointed out where everyone should stand, and repeatedly checked her phone while barking orders to someone about flower arrangements. She hadn't spoken directly to any of us since her initial greeting, treating the Cooper family like extras in her production. "Places, everyone!" Vivian called out, her voice cutting through conversations. "We need to rehearse the processional. Garrett, gather your groomsmen. Rosalie, where are your bridesmaids?" The room buzzed with movement, everyone taking their assigned positions. This should have been the easy part, the simple walkthrough before tomorrow's main event. Nobody expected it to become a battlefield. Vivian clinked her champagne glass with a sterling silver fork, the sharp sound cutting through every conversation in the crystal ballroom. The room fell silent immediately, like students when the principal walks in. She stood at the head of the room, her cream-colored suit pristine, her posture perfect, commanding attention like she was born to it. "Before we practice the processional, we need to discuss proper positioning," Vivian announced, her voice carrying that particular tone of someone who's never been questioned. The immediate family section will be reserved for blood relatives only. No children from previous relationships at the front. They can sit in the general guest area. The words hit like ice water poured down my back. I felt Braden's small hand find mine instantly, his fingers tightening around my palm. The room seemed to tilt for a moment, and I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. "Mom?" Braden whispered, confusion clouding his innocent face. "Does she mean me? Am I a child from a previous relationship?" Before I could answer, Rose's face had drained of all color. She looked like someone had slapped her. "Vivian, we discussed this already. Braden is my nephew. He's family." "We discussed possibilities." Vivian cut her off with surgical precision. "This is final. The photographer needs clean family shots without complications. The Whitmore family portrait that will hang in our estate doesn't need peripheral additions." Complications. Peripheral additions. She was talking about my 8-year-old son like he was an unwanted decoration that clashed with her color scheme. "Excuse me?" I stood, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "My son is not a complication. He's the ring bearer." Rose specifically asked him to be part of the ceremony. Vivian's smile was razor sharp. "Of course he can carry the rings. He'll walk down the aisle, deliver them, then sit with the general guests. It's perfectly reasonable." Reasonable? The word tasted bitter. "He's 8 years old. You want him to be in the wedding, but not actually part of it." "Your son," Vivian emphasized the word like she was explaining something to a child, "is not Garrett's blood. The Whitmore family has traditions spanning 5 generations. We maintain certain standards. Surely you understand the importance of preserving family legacy." Dad's chair scraped against marble as he stood, the sound echoing in the tense silence. His face was red, the way it got when he was trying not to say what he really thought. "Now wait just a minute. That boy is my grandson. If he's not family enough for you, Frank, please." Mom touched his arm, though her eyes blazed with a fury I rarely saw. Her voice was calm but deadly. "Mrs. Whitmore, I think you're making a mistake." "I don't make mistakes," Vivian replied coolly. "I make decisions based on what's best for the family reputation." Garrett remained frozen by the altar area, his face pale, eyes darting between his mother and Rose. I could see the war playing out on his face, the golden child torn between the woman who raised him and the woman he loved. "Garrett?" Rose's voice was small, broken. "Say something?" But he didn't. Not yet. The silence stretched like a rubber band about to snap. My sister's eyes filled with tears. She was fighting not to shed. This was supposed to be her perfect day, the fairy tale ending she dreamed about, and it was crumbling because my son's existence didn't fit into Vivian's social registry. "You know what?" I said, my voice carrying across the room. "If Braden can't stand with the family, then neither will I. He doesn't need to be treated like some dirty secret you're ashamed of." "Melody, you're being dramatic." Vivian waved her hand dismissively. "No one's ashamed. We're simply maintaining proper protocol." "Protocol?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "He's a little boy who's been practicing for weeks to be perfect for his aunt's wedding. He loves Rose and Garrett. But you want to shove him aside because his biological father isn't here? Because I had the audacity to get divorced?" The room was absolutely still. Even the waitstaff had stopped moving, frozen with trays in their hands. "Come on, baby," I said to Braden, taking his hand. "We're leaving." "But Mom, Aunt Rose's wedding." Braden's voice cracked and I could see tears starting to form. "I'm supposed to carry the rings. I practiced. I won't mess up, I promise. I'll sit wherever she wants me to sit." My heart shattered. My beautiful, sweet boy was willing to accept being pushed aside just to be part of something he'd been looking forward to for months. "Some things are more important than parties," I said, though leaving Rose felt like tearing myself in half. "We go where we're wanted, all of us, not just the convenient parts." We'd made it 3 steps toward the door when Garrett's voice rang out across the ballroom, sharp and clear as breaking glass. "Stop!" The single word carried more authority than I'd ever heard from him. Everyone turned, including Vivian, whose perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose in surprise at her son's tone. Garrett walked toward us with purposeful strides, reaching into his jacket pocket as he moved. He pulled out a small white card, folded once, and knelt down to Braden's level. The entire room watched as he handed my son the card along with the wireless microphone from the podium. "Braden, remember what we practiced last week?" Garrett's voice was gentle but firm. "When you came to my apartment and we had our secret meeting, when I taught you that special thing." Braden's eyes widened with recognition. "But you said that was for if something bad happened. You said it was our emergency plan." "This is the emergency, buddy. This is exactly what we prepared for." Garrett squeezed his shoulder. "Read the card, just like we rehearsed in my living room. Remember? You sat on my couch and we went over it 5 times until you got it perfect." Rose gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Garrett, what are you doing? What card? What meeting?" "Trust me," he said, standing and taking her hand. "I've been preparing for this since last week when Mom first mentioned her concerns about the family photos." Vivian's face shifted from surprise to anger, her complexion reddening beneath her perfect makeup. "Garrett Alexander Whitmore, what is the meaning of this?" "We are in the middle of your rehearsal dinner. This is neither the time nor the place for whatever stunt you're attempting." "Mom, you've had your say. You made your position crystal clear." Garrett's voice was steel. "Now it's Braden's turn. The person you just called a complication gets to speak." The wedding coordinator stepped forward nervously. "Perhaps we should take a brief break." "No breaks," Garrett said firmly. "This happens now. Go ahead, Braden." My son looked up at me, uncertain and small in his little navy suit. His hands trembled slightly as he held the card and microphone. I had no idea what was written on that paper, no clue what Garrett had planned, but something in his eyes made me trust him. "It's okay, baby," I said, though my heart was racing. "Go ahead and read what Garrett taught you." Braden slowly unfolded the card. I could see Garrett's handwriting, neat and precise. The microphone picked up the sound of the paper rustling, amplifying it through the ballroom's speaker system. Every single person was watching my 8-year-old son, waiting. "Should I stand on something?" Braden asked Garrett, "so everyone can see me?" Nathan, Garrett's older brother, suddenly moved. He grabbed a chair and placed it behind Braden. "Here you go, little man, stand on this." Vivian shot Nathan a look that could have frozen fire. "Nathan, don't encourage this nonsense." "Let the kid speak, Mom," Nathan replied, and there was something in his tone I hadn't expected. Support. Braden climbed onto the chair, the microphone seeming huge in his small hands. He cleared his throat the way he did before his school presentations, that little nervous tick I knew so well. "My name is Braden James Cooper," he began, his young voice echoing through the stunned silence. "Uncle Garrett asked me to read this list of names. He said these are people who told him something important." Vivian moved toward the podium. "This is ridiculous. Give me that microphone immediately." "Touch that kid and you'll deal with me," Dad said, stepping forward. It wasn't a threat, just a simple statement of fact, but something in his construction worker frame and calloused hands made Vivian stop. "Continue, Braden," Garrett said calmly. "Read exactly what we practiced." My son looked down at the card again, his finger following the words. Uncle Garrett wrote that these are people who told him they wouldn't come to his wedding if kids like me couldn't be real family. He said I should read their names so everyone knows who they are. The room erupted in whispers. I saw Vivian's perfectly composed face crack, just slightly, like a windshield hit by a pebble. "He said each person made a choice," Braden continued, his voice getting stronger. "They chose me. They chose family that includes everyone." Rose grabbed Garrett's arm. "You did this? You contacted people?" "Every single person on that list," Garrett confirmed. "I called them all last week after Mom's first pronouncement about the ceremony. I explained the situation. Their responses were immediate and unanimous." "This is manipulation," Vivian hissed. "You're using a child to emotionally blackmail your own family." "No, Mom," Garrett replied calmly. "I'm using the truth to show you who your family really is. Read the names, Braden. Show everyone who stands with you." Braden adjusted his stance on the chair, gripping the microphone with both hands now. his voice clear and steady as he began reading the first name on the list. Garrett's brother, Nathan Whitmore. Nathan stood immediately, his chair clattering against the marble floor. He walked to the center of the room, positioning himself directly in front of his mother. "That's right. I won't celebrate a union that excludes children. I've watched you do this before, Mom, with cousin Patricia's adopted daughter. I said nothing then. I was a coward, not anymore." Vivian's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Nathan walked over and stood beside Braden's chair, placing a protective hand on my son's shoulder. "Keep reading, buddy," Nathan encouraged. "Garrett's cousin, Deanna Whitmore Chen." Deanna rose from her seat, her husband standing with her. She was elegant, refined, everything a Whitmore should be, but her voice shook with emotion. "Our daughter, Lily, was adopted from China. She faced the same treatment at every family gathering. The subtle exclusion, the separate table for non-blood relatives, the family photos she was never included in. We're done pretending it's acceptable." She walked over and stood with Nathan, her husband following. The line of supporters was growing. Garrett's best friend, Jerome Williams. Jerome stood up, straightening his tie as he did. He was Garrett's best man, the friend from college who'd become like a brother. I was that kid once. Different dad, wrong side of town, didn't fit the country club image. Garrett was the only one who never made me feel less than. If he says Braden is family, then Braden is family. If that's not good enough for this wedding, then neither am I. More murmurs rippled through the crowd. Braden continued, his young voice gaining confidence with each name. "Margaret Whitmore Hastings." The room gasped collectively. Margaret was Vivian's older sister, the matriarch of another branch of the Whitmore Empire. She stood slowly, deliberately, her pearl necklace catching the light as she moved. "Aunt Margaret?" Vivian's voice broke, the first real emotion I'd seen from her all night. Margaret walked toward her sister, stopping just feet away. "I've watched you do this for 30 years, Vivian, using money and status to build walls instead of bridges, excluding people who don't meet your impossible standards. That boy," she pointed at Braden, "is more family than you've been in decades. He shows up. He practices. He cares. What have you done except write checks and make demands?" "You're my sister," Vivian whispered. "Then act like it. Act like family means more than bloodlines and bank accounts." Braden looked at the card again. "There are more names. Should I keep going?" "Every single one," Garrett said firmly. "Thomas Whitmore, Garrett's uncle. Patricia Whitmore Smith, Garrett's cousin. Jennifer Reeves, family friend for 20 years. David Chen, Garrett's business partner. Sandra Williams, Jerome's mom. Franklin Torres, Garrett's mentor." With each name, another person stood. The financial advisor who'd managed the Whitmore portfolios for 2 decades. The family physician who delivered Garrett. The dean of Garrett's business school. One by one, they rose from their seats, creating a standing testament to their choice. Robert Whitmore, Garrett's father. The room went absolutely silent. Everyone turned to look at Garrett's father, who'd been quiet throughout the entire confrontation. He stood slowly from his position at the head table, his movement deliberate and meaningful. "Robert, you can't be serious." Vivian's voice was barely a whisper. "I've been serious about this for years," he said quietly. "I just never had the courage to say it. That ends tonight." He walked over and stood with the others. "Family isn't about blood, Vivian. It's about choice. And I choose to stand with my son, my future daughter-in-law, and yes, my grandson, Braden." The word grandson hung in the air like a declaration of war and peace all at once. Braden looked at the card one more time. The last part says, "Every person standing is prepared to leave if Braden can't be where he belongs, right up front with the people who love him." This isn't a threat, it's a promise. Family means everyone or no one. More than half the room was standing now. The Whitmore family empire's power players, society friends, business associates, all on their feet in support of one 8-year-old boy who just wanted to carry rings at his aunt's wedding. Now, Garrett took the microphone from Braden and lifted him down from the chair. Then he turned to face his mother, who stood isolated at the front of the room, her perfect world crumbling around her. "Mom, you have a choice. Accept my nephew Braden as full family, or lose half your guest list, including me. Because if Melody and Braden leave, Rose and I leave too. We'll get married at the courthouse tomorrow with the people who understand that love makes a family, not blood. Your call." The silence stretched for what felt like hours, but was probably only seconds. Vivian stood there, her perfect composure finally cracked, looking at the sea of standing guests like she was seeing them for the first time. Then, without a word, she picked up her clutch purse and walked toward the door. Her heels clicked against the marble in sharp, angry strikes. "If you leave, don't come back," Robert called after her, his voice firm. "I mean it, Vivian. You walk out that door. You're walking out of this family." She paused at the doorway, her back rigid. Two of her society friends, Eleanor Ashford and Diana Price, quickly gathered their things and followed her. The three of them disappeared into the night, leaving behind a room full of people who'd chosen love over loyalty to wealth. The moment the door closed, the entire atmosphere changed. It was like someone had opened windows in a stuffy room. People started talking, laughing, moving around freely. Nathan picked Braden up and put him on his shoulders. "You did it, little man! You're braver than any adult in this room." Garrett walked over to Rose, who was crying openly now, mascara streaming down her cheeks. "I'm sorry I didn't tell you about the plan. I needed it to be real, to be genuine." "You called all these people?" Rose asked through her tears. "Every single one. The moment Mom made her demands last week about family photos and seating arrangements, I knew this was coming." He turned to me. "Melody, I need you to know something. Your son isn't just welcome in this family. He is this family. He's been my nephew since the day I fell in love with Rose, and nothing my mother says or does will change that." Dad walked over and shook Garrett's hand, then pulled him into a bear hug. "You're good people, son. Welcome to the Cooper family, where we might not have trust funds, but we've got each other's backs." The country club staff seemed unsure how to proceed without Vivian's commanding presence. The manager approached nervously. "Should we continue with the dinner service?" "Cancel the fancy stuff," Robert said, taking charge with a smile I'd never seen from him before. "Anyone know a good pizza place that delivers?" "Papa Lorenzo's delivers anywhere for the right price," Dad offered. "Best pizza in the city." "Order 50 pizzas," Robert said, pulling out his wallet. "Various toppings. And get some of those garlic knots my son keeps telling me about." Within an hour, the Crystal Ballroom had transformed. We pushed the formal tables together into long family-style arrangements. People loosened ties, kicked off expensive shoes, and sat wherever they wanted. Braden was at the center of it all, telling anyone who'd listen about how Uncle Garrett had secretly coached him. "We practiced 5 times, he said proudly to Margaret, who'd pulled him onto her lap. "Uncle Garrett said I had to be brave like a knight protecting the kingdom." "And you were the bravest knight of all," Margaret said, hugging him tight. She looked at me over his head. "Your son is extraordinary." "He gets it from his aunt," I said, watching Rose and Garrett slow dancing to music from someone's phone. No fancy band needed. The wedding happened 2 days later in my parents' backyard. Mom and I stayed up all night stringing lights between the trees. Dad built an archway from lumber scraps, and Rose's teacher friends covered it with wildflowers. It was perfect in its imperfection, real in a way the country club could never have been. Braden stood right next to Garrett as the ring bearer and honorary best man. When the officiant asked for the rings, Braden announced to everyone, "I got them. I'm official family now." The crowd erupted in cheers and laughter. 3 months later, we got a letter from Vivian. No apology, just a check for $50,000 made out to Rose and Garrett. Rose wanted to tear it up, but Garrett had a better idea. They donated it to a local organization that supports blended families and adoption services in Braden's name. Margaret visits regularly now. She's teaching Braden piano and has already declared him her primary heir, much to Vivian's horror. "That boy stood up to bullies," she told me. "That's worth more than any trust fund." Last week, Garrett officially filed papers to adopt Braden. We were having dinner when he brought it up. "Braden, how would you feel about me becoming your dad?" "Officially?" My son thought about it seriously, the way only 8-year-olds can. "Can I still call you Uncle Garrett sometimes? Like when we're playing video games?" "You can call me whatever makes you comfortable." Garrett said. "Uncle Garrett, Dad, Gary the Scary, when I beat you at Mario Kart." "Then yes," Braden said simply. "You already act like my dad anyway." And that's the truth of it. Family isn't about blood or traditions or perfect photos in country clubs. It's about who shows up, who stands up, and who refuses to let anyone make you feel like you don't belong. It's about pizza in ballrooms and backyard weddings and choosing love over everything else. Sometimes I think about Vivian, alone in her perfect mansion with her perfect things. Margaret says she asks about Braden sometimes in her stubborn, roundabout way. Maybe one day she'll understand what she lost that night, or maybe she won't. Either way, we're building something better without her. Family is a choice. And that night, when my 8-year-old son stood on a chair with a microphone, reading names of people who chose him back, we all learned that the most powerful families aren't built on bloodlines or bank accounts. They're built on courage, conviction, and the radical idea that love is always enough. If you enjoyed this story, please give this video a like and share it with someone who needs to hear that they belong, exactly as they are. Drop a comment below about a time when chosen family showed up for you. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories about love, triumphing over prejudice, and the courage of standing up for what's right.